As I am sure you're aware, there was an absolute tragedy that occurred in the skies above DC last night, and that should be bad enough, you would think. Tragic loss of life in a midair collision. It's the sort of horror that thankfully does not happen very often. But unfortunately, it didn't happen a month ago. It didn't happen a year ago, where that would have been just as bad as it is. Unfortunately, Donald Trump is now president, and he has found some ways to make it even worse. And so we will turn to that. But I want to start with just the details on what actually happened. And so it is believed right now that 67 people have lost their lives after an American Airlines jet carrying 64 people collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3. There had initially been some talk that made it seem as if there could be survivors, but it is now believed that there are not going to be any survivors from that for, I think, fairly obvious reasons. And so we have a little graphic visualization of the flight paths. A lot of people, I think, are focused on just the sheer unlikelihood of this happening. There are so many systems in place that are supposed to stop this from happening, and the odds of two things like that colliding, when there are lights and there's night vision and all of that is so incredibly unlikely. But it is now being investigated. We don't know for sure exactly what happened, how the systems failed, but we do have Secretary of Transportation and also former Real World Road Rules Challenge cast member Sean Duffy. He's looking into it. I'm not joking. Look it up. He's looking into it. He said both were taking a standard flight pattern, and so we don't have a lot of details, or I should say, we don't have a lot of facts. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to say a lot of things, which we'll turn to. But for now, many of the deceased have yet to be identified. And we're gonna put up a graphic that has a phone number that's been made available for people to contact if they believe they might know someone who could have been on that plane. If you even suspect that someone you know could have been on that plane, my heart goes out to you, let alone if it turns out to be true. But before we get into the discussion, I just want to let you know that as of about a week ago, Donald Trump is now in charge. And by the logic that I learned over the past couple of years, he's responsible for everything bad that happens in this country. So I guess this is on him. But he started off talking on Truth Social about this. He said it was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. He goes on all these different details. And then he starts saying, why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good. Which, like, yeah, it's him being his ridiculous self. Why is the president real-time tweeting his stream of consciousness about a national tragedy in the first place? Why is he asking people on Truth Social rhetorical questions when he should be on the phone with people who are actually responsible for this, doing the actual investigation and yelling, not good? Dude, you're not just a guy on Twitter anymore. Unfortunately, you're in charge. We don't need to know that it's not good. Dozens and dozens of people died. We have video of it. You can see it happen. You're not just supposed to be a troll anymore, for better or for worse. And unfortunately, I know which way it's leaning. You are now responsible for this. If not directly responsible for the crash, you're responsible for getting us through this. And you are already proving yourself with the first little tragedy that we have, and we're gonna have a lot of them, that you are no better equipped to do that than you've been through any of the many, many, many years that you've unfortunately been cursing the Earth's surface. And so there's more, and it's not just him, by the way. Immediately, the first responses, and I only mention this because right now, you can bring up this next graphic 5. It's the top response to his truth, but it will be Jesse Waters' monologue soon. Let's be honest, this is a deliberate attack by the deep state on the Trump administration. It obviously the helicopter that attacked the plane. Donald Trump is doing an incredible job in a very tragic situation. At this point, all he'd done is tweet not good. So instantly, they have conspiracy theories that it's the deep state. And then also, all he has to do is post random driveling nonsense, and they're like, boom, he nailed it. If this was Joe Biden in charge right now, I can only imagine what they'd be saying about him, about Pete Buttigieg, and all of that. But anyway, Francesca, I've thrown a lot out there. It's a very dark situation. What are you thinking at this point?
I mean, I don't know when we are going to talk about it, but Trump did fire the head of the TSA and also gave a bunch of FAA workers a notification to resign.
Yeah.
So that happened last week. Fires the head of the TSA, Coast Guard, and guts the Aviation Safety Committee. That was last week. Now, there's not a causal necessarily one for one in terms of what happened. Apparently, the airport has been like way overbooked, congested. The military flights often, this is not abnormal for a helicopter, like a Black Hawk helicopter, to fly through this airspace. Obviously, it's the nation's capital and whatnot. But like, if we're jumping to any conclusions, and honestly, as someone who's sick and tired of waiting to be like, I don't know, we should always say alleged. And yes, I know we should say alleged because we're doing news. But my God, a week later, after gutting these, federal aviation committees, the worst incident in the skies since 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna just at least say that and name that. But I mean, the real thing is like, I'm getting like Robert Pattinson vibes, Kristen Stewart vibes from this kind of tweeting, right? This is like back when Donald Trump wasn't even running for president. This is just him opining, old man in the chair. Well, now we've elected old man in the chair to be president. And here's the thing, John, the reason this works is because he doesn't even believe that government has a role. If you want your airline to be safe, if you want to survive a crash, well, you should pay for your own parachutes and your own EMT workers. You should pay for your own FAA workers who will be a private force that can make sure that there's no other planes out there and helicopters that might run into yours. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like on and on and on. This is what extreme libertarianism, the lack of regulations, and the hollowing out of the administrative state, all the things that they lust for and are doing. This is what happens when that occurs.
Yeah, and this happened a week into it. Woke is already dead. They killed it last week, and we already have this. When they fire 50, 75, 90% of all the people in charge of keeping you safe, do you think you're gonna be safer? How exactly does the math work out on that? Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.